To our studios in downtown Toronto, Bill Blair is joining us. He is the Liberal Parliamentary Secretary. He has been the point person on this file and was one time, of course, the Chief of Police for the City of Toronto. Mr. Blair, thank you for this. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Todd. Thank you.
So let me ask you, in terms of this timeline, am I right when I say that by Canada Day 2018, it's going to be legal?
Well, you know, let's acknowledge that there is still a great deal of work to do. There are parliamentary processes, which I certainly respect, and taking it through the House of Commons and also through the Senate. We've got a lot of work to do with the provinces and the territories and with municipalities right across the country to make sure we get this right. We're committed to taking the time to get it right, but at the same time, the current system, I believe, is failing our kids and allowing organized crime to make enormous profits. And so we can't afford to drag our feet. I think we've all got a responsibility to move ahead as expeditiously as possible, but at the same time, it's challenging and it's going to take a real effort on everyone's part to make sure we get it right.
One of the big questions that I know you've been asked this is where will people be able to actually buy the marijuana? Do we know?
Well, and frankly, there's no one simple answer to that, Todd. And in fact, the provinces have the authority under our Constitution. You know, we're a cooperative federation, and those provinces have responsibility and an authority to make determinations on how to regulate that retail environment. Certainly, I think there's a common agreement among all of us that it has to be done in such a way that's competitive with organized crime, but at the same time achieves our goal of making it very, very difficult, restricting the access that youngsters have to this drug. We want to make sure that it's done in a safe way, a socially responsible way. We'll be working very closely with the provinces and territories. And, you know, we've got I think, some very good advice from experts and science on what good practice would look like. But we have work to do with the provinces as they determine what's best in their environment.
There was a heavy emphasis, as you know, today in this announcement about law and order and the penalties and the punishments of those who will violate aspects of this law. Is that an effort by the government to give yourself some political cover here so that people can't accuse you of being soft on drugs or pushing too far on this?
No, Todd, let me be really clear. I think my government is very, very sincere in its stated desire to do a better job of protecting our kids. Right now, we have the highest rates of cannabis use among our kids anywhere in the world. And we believe that poses a real risk to our kids. And so we want to restrict their access to it. We also want to make sure that they have information so that they can make better informed choices about their own health and their own outcome. At the same time, right now, this business is overwhelmingly controlled by the criminal element. And organized crime does nothing good in our communities. And in my experience as a police chief, is responsible for a lot of the violence and the victimization that takes place in our communities, in our neighborhoods. And so, you know, our stated goals is to take those profits away from organized crime, do a better job of protecting our kids, and to ensure that we can take the steps necessary to protect the health of Canadians. Now, there are certainly, as in our experience, people who will operate outside the law. And we want to make it very clear, we're going to have a highly regulated system of production, a highly rated regime of distribution, and rules around consumption so that it's done in a safer and a healthier and more socially responsible way. And we expect Canadians to adhere to those regulations and those rules. And those who would operate outside those rules have to understand that there are real consequences.
And Mr. Blair, what about people who, number one, have already been charged with possession crimes, or let's say between today and when this actually is passed, who are charged? I mean, is there going to be some sort of consideration for all of those people? Because we're talking, as you know, about hundreds of thousands of Canadians.
Well, there are hundreds of thousands of Canadians who have received a criminal record for this offence in the past. And certainly that's one of the things that we hope to address with a new system of legalization and regulation. But Todd, the current system of cannabis control is all we have in order to keep this away from kids and to keep organized crime in check. It's an imperfect system, and we're working very hard to replace it with something that we believe will be far more effective. And in the interim, I would urge all Canadians to continue to obey the law. And I think it's very important for them to understand what the law says and that they should operate within it. We're working very hard to bring in more effective regulations and in order to protect our kids and to protect our communities. And in the interim, I'd urge everyone to obey the law.
Bill Blair, the Liberal government's point person on this file. Mr. Blair, I know it's a busy day for you. We appreciate you making a bit of time for CTV, though, today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.